Hey everyone. So, welcome back. Um, this week's stride progress took a little bit of a turn, and I think it was a good thing. So, let's jump right into it. I noticed this week that I felt like I was hitting a wall, and in my session, I discussed this and how I had been feeling so progress driven since, for the last 6 months. There was always something else that I could focus on. Structure, framework, outlining, building and refining stride, the whole process. And recently I've been I started engaging with the actual course as a student or an active user, and I immediately identified a bunch of things I needed to update. And I've spent, over the last month really updating and refining everything that there was to do. And now that I'm re-engaging with the system, I feel like there isn't something that I'm always able to focus on in between my time of learning. And while that was the actual goal of this whole system, it's hard to readjust. I was always making progress somewhere, and I've worked at and built so many little positive habits over the last 6 months that now I'm kind of hitting this groove where those habits are becoming concrete. And so they feel less progressive, if you know what I mean. If you've ever made major changes or worked on building habits, you hit a point where the excitement of the change is kind of gone, and you're kind of in the groove of just following through. So it doesn't feel the same as it did. And that was kind of a perspective shift for me. Like there was always something for me to be making progress on. And now it doesn't feel like there is. And I think in my session, what I realized is that I have to recontextualize what progress is for me in this system. And I've actually been able to make a bunch of progress and gain perspective since I had that session. So, needless to say, I feel like at the beginning of the week, I felt like I was hitting a rut, and now I feel like I couldn't be in a better position. And that being said, let's move into what, I've done this week. So, I was able to focus on being a student again. Now, while life got in the way again, and I need to start shifting my work blocks to the evening after the kids go to bed. I mean, the whole system was designed on that, and I haven't actually enacted it. Next week, that's going to be one of my goals, is doing night courses and actually trying to knock out a full week of study. But that being said, I realized in my first lesson this week that I hadn't ever actually hammered down the type of narrative structure and the POV structure that I wanted to write this book and series in. And being a novice writer, I didn't know what I didn't know. I was writing scenes, following the prompts, and listening to the readings and the writings and doing everything I could just out of kind of instinct and direction. But I didn't have a real solid concept of how I wanted to do what and why. So that came up in the first lesson, and that made me understand and research what approaches I should take. I landed on a close multi-POV narrative structure with a hybrid of, first person and third person. So it's first person limited and third person objective. So I really wanted this to be as real a perspective of the protagonist as possible. Now, that being said, there's value and need to depict scenes that the protagonist isn't part of. But I still want it to be from an objective lens when it's not from her point of view. So that's where the third person objective comes in. It's when there's a scene, or say the setup to a scene that takes place when the protagonist isn't there. I can give the reader that information and let them experience what's happening without it being the immersive, like, first person point of view of the characters involved in said scene. And I can maintain the psychological realism of the actual immersion in the perspective or the POV of the protagonist, because when she is involved, it becomes first person limited. So it's all what she sees and experiences. So, I mean, just the concept of all of that, and then understanding that that was the natural fit for how I was wanting to tell this story, it made me feel more of a writer than I've ever felt. It didn't take long for me to identify how I wanted to approach that once I knew what options I had available and what they lent to the narrative, let's say. So that was huge. And today I actually took a whole lesson on exploring that and exploring my hybrid approach and applying it directly to a writing, and then reflecting on that. I did a short form reading, which was, what was it? The Yellow Wallpaper, which was a short story that was published in like 1860s, and it was wild. But that being said, its first person point of view really gave me a lot of context on how that writing style impacts the reader. So anyway, I had set out to do 3 lessons this week, and I only got 2 done. That being said, they were so impactful. Like, I don't even want to focus on other things anymore. I just want to be a student and start focusing on my writing. So that being said, that whole realization led to a little bit of refinement in Stride as a whole. And it is the introduction of a preliminary phase that would reduce the need for, full shifts in direction midway through a course, like I just had to go through. So what happens is a user will identify their goals or their creative goals, whether it be writing, whether it be they're learning art, or whether it be something different. And if that goal has multiple approaches, then there will be, built into the whole process, there's going to be a preliminary phase where you take your concept and then explore the options on how to approach that from all the different angles. So what would have happened in this case is my first couple of weeks, I would have been following lessons that would have been designed to say, okay, here's what you want to do. Here are your options on how to get there. Let's try them out and see what fits. So I would have not only learned those options, I would have been engrossed in them. I would have experienced them. And then I would have been able to pick the ones that fit best. Instead of getting 6 months into this project and not even knowing that I didn't know that I had to I didn't know anything about that stuff. And I've read hundreds of books, but absorbing reading doesn't translate to knowing how to write. Like, yes, I can write whatever I want. And writers often write with no experience, but understanding POVs or multi-POVs and that type of stuff does have some sort of textbook learning involved. You need to have a concept if you're going to nail an approach. So, yeah, I'm aware. I feel like these vlogs are a little bit meandering. They're like what I actually do is I write up my weekly Reddit post, and then I come up with some talking points to try and hammer out some sort of sensical vlog update for the week. And I know that it's probably not the best in terms of compare this to other people who do this. That being said, I think I'll probably get better. We'll see over time. I'm sorry if these aren't good. I don't have the time to edit, to sit there and dedicate and iron out this craft right now. I'm so early in the process of learning and writing. I've got under 9,000 words written, and I'm probably shooting for somewhere around 200,000 words, give or take, maybe more, for the first book. I probably want more because the edit I'm going to be slashing. So I would say 300,000 words might be a good benchmark. So I got a long way to go. That being said, if I can crank out 1,000 or 1,500 plus words a day for 4 days a week, I think I'll be on track. 5,000 words a week, and I should be hitting a good rhythm. And once I start doing that, I'll probably start having days where I'm doing a couple thousand words. But yeah, there's not much left. My engagement, I'm gonna work on. I'm gonna refine this as I go. Yeah, and I don't know if you've ever hit like a snag where you didn't feel like you were making progress. It helps to step back and try to recontextualize. I felt like I wasn't making progress because I didn't have another notch on the belt. I didn't have another thing to track that or a new angle to look into. I kind of hit a lull where all of my progress was still progressing, but nothing new was happening. So it didn't feel like it. And it wasn't until I realized that the lessons were, which is what the whole thing was designed around, that was the whole purpose, but the lessons are the progress, and I am the progress. My realizations about narrative structure this week and my experiments with multi-POV writing, I mean, that's the progress now. And that's what this was all about to begin with. So I'm excited. I'm excited to do that as I was intending. So I hope you stick with me and keep following along. And yeah, we'll see you there. Thanks.